What if the Earth had rings like Saturn? Imagine waking up one morning and looking up at the sky, only to see massive shimmering rings stretching across the heavens. Not clouds, not airplanes. Actual planetary rings, just like Saturn's. Wide, beautiful arcs of ice and rock suspended high above, visible even during the day. Sounds majestic, right? But what would really happen if Earth had rings like Saturn? Let's start by imagining how big they would be. Saturn's rings extend out more than 280,000 kilometers, over twice the width of Earth. If Earth had a similar ring system, they would likely be smaller due to our planet's weaker gravity, but still massive. Picture rings stretching tens of thousands of kilometers around Earth's equator, made up of icy particles, dust, and fragments ranging in size from grains of sand to entire boulders. At night, they'd glow in the moonlight, and during the day, they'd create dazzling arcs across the sky. But here's where things get wild. These rings wouldn't look the same from every part of the world. If you lived near the equator, you'd barely see them. Why? Because Earth's rings would sit along the equatorial plane, so you'd be looking at them edge on, like trying to view a CD from the side. They'd appear as a thin, faint line, maybe even invisible to the naked eye. But if you moved closer to the poles, say Alaska or Norway, the rings would dominate the sky, arching across like luminous bridges from one horizon to the other. Cities in high latitudes would have the most dramatic skylines on Earth, and that changes everything. The rings would affect more than just the view. Imagine the impact on culture and art. Paintings, flags, religions, all built around the ever-present bands in the sky. Poets would write about them, children would draw them, and astrologers would never shut up about their ring energy. Architecture might even adapt, open-roof temples pointing at the rings, observatories constantly monitoring their shifting glow. But not everything would be beautiful. Rings come with consequences. First, sunlight. Those massive rings would cast shadows on Earth. Depending on their size, density, and angle, parts of the planet could spend significant portions of the day under ring shadow. That would cool down the surface in some areas and mess with weather patterns. Entire regions might experience colder, darker climates, not because of clouds or latitude, but because they happen to fall under the shadow of floating space gravel. Then there's space travel. Earth's rings would orbit just outside the atmosphere, possibly in what's called the Roche limit. The closest distance objects can orbit without forming a moon. That's pretty low, dangerously low for satellites and spacecraft. Navigating launches would become a nightmare. Rockets would need to thread carefully between icy debris, dodging giant cosmic pebbles like interstellar pinballs. GPS systems, communication satellites, even the International Space Station would be at risk unless carefully positioned. Speaking of debris, ring systems are notoriously unstable over long periods of time. Collisions happen. Fragments crash into each other, sending pieces flying inward, some of which might burn up in Earth's atmosphere. Imagine watching shooting stars not caused by distant comets, but from our own rings. Beautiful, yes, but risky. And then there's the sky at night. Oh, the sky. The rings would reflect sunlight long after the sun had set, lighting up the night with an eerie glow. Forget darkness. The rings would bathe the night in a soft, shimmering light. Stargazing? Ruined. Astronomy? Much harder. The Milky Way would be hard to spot. But the trade-off? A permanent cosmic display, free and visible to everyone. But let's say you're a romantic. You might be thinking, okay, maybe we lose a few stars, but sunsets with glowing rings? Yes, please. And you'd be right. Sunsets near the poles would be the most breathtaking thing imaginable. The sunlight hitting the rings at low angles would scatter into all colors, purples, reds, golds, creating a layered rainbow arching across the entire sky. Every evening would look like the opening scene of a science fiction movie. However, there's a final twist. Those rings wouldn't last forever. Tidal forces, solar radiation, and gravitational interactions would eventually cause them to decay. Over millions of years, they'd thin out, fall toward Earth, or clump together into new moons. So, if you lived in the age of Earth rings, you'd be part of a cosmic window in time, a temporary chapter in Earth's history, written across the sky. In the end, Earth with rings would be both a dream and a dilemma. Stunning to behold, culturally transformative, scientifically fascinating, but with real-world consequences. Would it be worth it? Maybe, especially if you lived far from the equator and liked dramatic sunsets.